Hello and welcome to today's On24 webinar Best Practices series. My name is Mark Bornstein. I'm the VP of Marketing and Chief Webinar here at On24. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Now, before we get started, I just need to ask everybody, so if everybody, whoever you're top of funnel, please raise your hand. If you're mid funnel, now raise your hand. Or if you're ready to make a purchase, can you raise your hand? If you're not sure, look in the mirror. It probably says right above your forehead. So what a crazy thing that we used to think about as marketers, like who's top of funnel, who's bottom funnel? Well, that's what we're going to be talking all about today as we talk about how to create webinars across the entire buyer's journey. And that's what it is. It's a journey, right? And so we need to get better at this. We need to think about the role of webinars, and webinars have never been more important in terms of how we connect and engage our prospects and our customers as well. And so I'm going to show you a lot of examples for what companies are doing and how to rethink what that buyer's journey looks like and maybe create some new types of content experiences. But before we get started, let's connect. Let's go through the housekeeping first. The On24 webinar console you're looking at right now can be completely customized. You can move windows around. You can stretch them out, make them bigger. We've also got a ton of engagement tools for you to engage with in this experience, which kind of is the whole point of the thing. On the bottom, there's a tray of engagement tools. I'll go over them from left to right very quickly. First, there's a media player to control your volume, slide button to open, close your slide window. You're going to want to leave that open because I'm going to do basically nothing but show pictures and talk about stuff. Then there's a speaker bio if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn afterwards. I've made friends with so many of you. It's great. I love to chat afterwards. So if you want to hit me up on LinkedIn and we can continue the conversation. Speaking of talking, the next button is the chat with me button, which is essentially the Q&A button. For those of you that know me or know this webinar series, you know that I use the Q&A button pretty much like a chat. So at any time you have a question, you have a comment, you want to know, like, what's up? Is that Bob Ross above you? Yeah, that's Bob Ross. We all need some Bob Ross, don't we? We talked about this last month, I think, how we just need more Bob Ross in our life. Boy, don't we right now? Anyway, so why don't we get this started right now with our annual or with our monthly, what are we drinking? What's everybody drinking right now? You got tea, you got coffee? What's everybody doing? Click on that button, the Q&A button, the Talk with Mark, Chat with Mark button. Let me know what you're drinking, what's in your cup. That'll be a good conversation starter. Okay, after that, we've got our resources. You'll be able to get a copy of today's slides. You also will have some other complimentary content. Next to that, somewhere right around here, you can sign up for next month's episode of this Webinar Best Practices series, and it's a good one. One of our most popular ones, 10 common webinar mistakes to avoid. And I'm trying to come up with some new ones. I gotta have some oldies and some new ones this year, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm just gonna talk about some of the common mistakes that a lot of people make when they're delivering webinars, both big and small, for what goes into a successful webinar. So you're definitely gonna wanna check out that one. So just go right now and click. Is everybody clicking? You guys clicking? You good? Okay. Then after that, if you're loving the experience that we're having right now and you're like, Mark, how do I deliver one of these? How do I get me some of this? Next to that, there is a link you can click on a free demo of the On24 platform. No sales pitch, no pressure. Just come check it out, see what it does, see what you can do with it, no problem. If you do want to have a conversation, the next button over, that way, or no, maybe it's that way, I don't know, is you can book a meeting. You can actually, you can speak to an On24 consultant who will love to just talk to you about whatever you've got going on or whatever needs you have. Again, we're not all about the pressure here. We just love to help people out. So you can do that. You can set up some time with an On24 expert. After that, there's a link to our survey. Love to get some feedback from you. Please, please, please. It means so much to us to hear what you think of the webinars and the content and the experience, and also to tell us what else you'd like us to cover in future episodes, because we build these for you. And then at the end, a couple of things. There's a reactions button. You can have, you've got emojis in webinars now. Who decided that was a cool thing? So yes, as I'm talking, you can give me thumbs up, thumbs down, boo, hearts. and other things. Poops. Do we have poop emojis in our? I don't know. I'm looking over there like there's anybody in my room. Anyway, and then listen, the last thing I want to tell you about, glued in this console is a giant advertisement. Our annual user conference, the On24 Experience, is just days away. For those of you, I know most of you are registered. For those of you who have not, it is going to be an amazing experience. It's like only not even a half day experience, so it won't kill your day, but it is going to be chock full of amazing presentations. We've got some great keynote speakers. We're going to be unveiling some brand new products, which we're really excited about. Also, I'm going to be in conversation with our featured keynote speaker, Academy Award-winning actor, Marlee Matlin. What? Me talking to Marlee Matlin? Are you kidding? Yeah, that's happening. So register for that. But there's also a ton of best practices sessions and breakouts. It's a lot of fun. So please click, sign up, register. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. So there's a lot of housekeeping. Okay, Mark, if I would any complaint about your webinar today is you're too much housekeeping. I know that was a lot of stuff, but anyway. Let's see how you guys are doing. Where can you submit reactions? They're right below you. See a picture of an emoji? I think you can do your reactions there. Fred's here. Hey, Fred. And he's drinking Coke Zero. What's going on, my friend? Fred, look at that. One of the OGs of webinars. Trevor's having a Monster Energy drink. We got some LaCroix folks here. Dakota, I see you. Dan's got the coffee. Whoa, Tracy's going big with the 4 Sigmatic mushroom coffee with protein milk. That is the way we roll here. I don't know. That's crazy. More energy drinks, Carson, lemon water. All right, Ashley. Ashley's bringing the health kick with us. I love it. Some splash berry water. Why do I read this? I don't know. Okay, Cameron's got a matcha latte. No tea, people. There are no tea people. Wait a minute. Brian's got some hot black tea. That's cool. Okay. It's just unbelievable. I feel like I'm alone here with the, oh, wait, okay. Michelle's got some sencha. All right, Michelle. Now that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I love a really good sencha. I've got some coming from Japan. It's on order. Is May the 4th be with you? Is that today? Is the 4th thing today? I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, all right, let's get in. We've taken enough time with this, and we have so much to talk about. I'll come back to you guys in a moment. So how to create webinars across the buyer's journey, so important. We really need to rethink everything in terms of look, this is a different world. I don't need to tell you that, do I? But the way in which we've used webinars has become, I think, so old and antiquated. We typically use webinars. I ask everybody, like, what is your primary use for a webinar? And they're like, to get as many leads as we can, just to, we do our our monthly thought leadership webinar and we're good. That's not the way it's going to go anymore. And we need to do so much more with our webinar programs. I thought I'd actually start by asking you, let's find out how many webinars we're all delivering. And I'm going to share some stats about us too. So I'll push out for a poll. How many webinars are you doing per month? And that way we can get a feel for where everybody is. Are you doing 1 to 2 a month, 3 to 5 a month, 6 to 10 a month, 11 or more? Or we don't do webinars, Mark. I just came here to have tea with you. So, and I'm beginning to feel like we got some of those people. We're just coming to hang out and have tea. Whoa, that's bitter. I overbrewed. I'm having a tea called Snooze Fest. I hope that's not indicative of today's webinar. Anyway, you vote on the poll by clicking right in that poll box that just popped up, not in the Q&A. Click right there in that little poll box and it'll go away. I'll come back to your answers in just a few moments. But let's talk about it. Look, we know that even before the pandemic, we were headed in this direction. Everything is going to be digital. Gartner said that by 2025, almost 80% of B2B sales interactions between suppliers and buyers would all be through digital channels. They said it before the pandemic. Forrester, 70% of B2B buyers prefer to research on their own before making a purchase decision. They said that before the pandemic. The pandemic has simply accelerated a digital inevitable that was always coming. That was always coming. And it means we need to rethink what marketing is in this new world. And it starts with this idea of the funnel. And I know that most of us have evolved out of this, but yet I still am in so many marketing conversations with relatively smart and mature marketers who talk about their funnel approach. And I'm like, what funnel? What funnel? Like this idea that everybody is going through this sequential buying journey where I'm in awareness now. Hi, we've just met. I'm interested in becoming aware about your company. And then when I'm aware enough, I will begin to consider. And then I will wonder if I prefer your company, and then I'll make it just doesn't work that way anymore. It's not true. It's not to say that all those things don't happen, but it doesn't happen in any sort of order. The reality is that we don't control a buyer's journey because the buyer's journey is all over the place. People are pinging around like crazy. The first interaction they may have with you may be a demo. The second one may be thought leadership. The third one may be some mid-funnel testimonial, and then back to thought leadership, then maybe to another demo. They're all, you can't, and they're doing it on their time, in their way, and they're controlling their own destiny. And good, right? That's the way we shop for products in our consumer lives. When I'm shopping for a TV or a car or whatever it is, I don't just get in the car and go to the lot and ask them what they've got. No, I'm doing all my research. I know what I want before I get there. And so, and we need to adapt to that reality. The goal is the same. It's just that the idea that there is an order to it, that demand gen teams can build a sequential hand-holding order to how we drive people through a buyer's journey is false. It's no longer real. So we still have to do these things. What do we have to do? Well, we have to establish ourselves as a thought leader or as a company that you would take seriously. We need to build trust. We need to get companies to believe in us enough to want to sniff a little further, right? We do need to position our company. We need to position our products, our solutions, our services, whatever we offer. We need to validate those things. We need to prove the value of our offerings, for sure. We need, in many cases, to demonstrate the functionality. We need to demonstrate the value. We need to drive, once people make that purchase decision, we're not done. We need to drive product adoption. We need to get our customers to use our products more effectively so they don't churn. We need to upsell them and cross-sell them into new solutions. And we need to build community. Like, all those things don't go away, but they're happening in any order. And so the idea of the thought leadership webinar as just sort of serving one role, or the webinar is just being, well, like, I'm just here to generate names, it's not true. What we need to do is rethink our strategy, and our webinar strategies need to move from, a tool to generate leads, from a way to surround our audiences in experiences, to basically support any need they have at that given moment. And that need is going to go all over the place. So if they need a product demo, you've got one. If they're just looking for some best practices, you've got some programming for that. If they're customers and they just want to do, they want to connect with other people that are customers of yours, then we've got community experiences. We need to create experiences for every need and surround our prospects with those experiences so that they can get what they need at the moment they need it. And that is the change in mindset that needs to take place for marketers today. And it's bigger than webinars. It's all your digital marketing, and it's all of your digital experiences. Today, we'll look at it through the lens of webinars because you can do so much with webinars. But this is really all of your digital marketing. Let's go to the poll. I asked you guys how many webinars you deliver per month. About 60% of you are doing 1 to 2 a month. 23 almost percent of you doing 3 to 5 a month. 4% doing 6 to 10, 4.2% doing 11 or more. That's actually quite a lot because there's a lot of you on this webinar. And look at this, almost 10% said, we don't do webinars, Mark. We just came here for the tea talk. All right, I'm with you. Although really it's not tea, is it? It's coffee, it's power drinks or whatever it is. Oh, that is so bitter. I really screwed up. I got so excited talking to all of you that I keep a little thermos of hot water so I can brew more tea live on the air. Somebody said to me a few months, so unprofessional that you drink tea on the air while you're delivering a webinar. Like I should just sit here and be robotic. And the next slide, I'm going to talk about, like nobody wants that. Nobody's interested in that experience. We want human beings. We want human interactions. We want to communicate and connect with each other as human beings. It's fun if we can connect as people, right? Don't you think we need more of that in this world? And maybe if we connect as people first, then everything else becomes easier. All right. So what does this poll tell me? Well, it tells me that a lot of you are in that mode where, look, we're doing our 1 or 2 webinars a month. We're getting our names and we're moving on. But it is nice to see that there are a lot of you out there that are doing more and you're taking it a little further. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some ideas now to really build those webinar programs up. So how do we do this? It all starts with, in a post-funnel world. Everybody's talking about post this world, post-physical world. It's not post-physical world. But in a post-funnel world, the key is engagement. And everything that you do when you're building your webinar programs needs to be, engagement is the goal of every webinar. It's not the name. It's not getting people to attend. It's engagement. The more we can engage people, the more we are going to figure out who they are. And in this crazy nonlinear buying journey, not funnel that people are in, the challenge is how do we get to know them? How do you get to know somebody before you know them? And a webinar is a great way to do it because we have the tools now to optimize every single webinar for maximum engagement. The more we engage people, the more they do in that experience, the more we'll learn about them. And it's not that they're mid-funnel or bottom funnel. It's that this is where their head's at. These are the things they're interested in. And if we're loading up our webinars with lots of different, interactivity tools, you're pushing out polls, you're doing lots of Q&A, maybe you got a survey, maybe you got a chat box, you got all kinds of things going on. You've got some conversion tools. You're inviting people to attend a demo, go to a free trial, link to a solutions page, link to a products page, sign up for an appointment. We'll figure people out. We'll get to know them. And that is why I say that you need every webinar program, no matter what its role, starts with this idea of optimizing for engagement. Okay, and I talk about this like every single month, but I'm going to keep saying it again and again and again because it is so important. And you want every experience to lead to the next experience, and you don't know where that journey is going to go. So you always want to give your audience options to click into the next thing. Let them go to the next thing. And if you do that, we start to get a new kind of metrics. How do you get to know people before you've known them? By looking at how long they're spending in different experiences and what they're touching, what they're clicking on, what those interactions were, what questions they ask, what poll responses. Are there intent signals that go beyond basic interest signals? Are they clicking on key CTAs? How actionable is the data that you're getting? And that's what this is all about. So now we're going to get into the meat of this discussion. What I want to do is, instead of saying, and by the way, this is what, like 5 years ago, if you attended this webinar with me, I would have been saying, okay, here are our top of funnel webinar examples. Here's our mid funnel webinar examples. I've changed. I'm trying to evolve as a marketer as well. And so instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about it for the goal. What are we trying to achieve and accomplish in our webinars? And again, the main goal is the engagement. The main goal is the engagement, but why are people coming? Well, let's start with what we used to think of as top of funnel, but what most webinars are today, and that is they're thought leadership webinars. This I would be considered a thought leadership webinar. We don't think about it as having a funnel stage because honestly, a lot of our customers come to this every month. We've got a lot of new prospects will come into this webinar. Some people are not interested in buying on 24, but they just love coming here for the best practices. That's okay, no problem. But what we are doing is we're establishing trust. At least you trust us enough and you believe in us enough to come and learn best practices and learn ideas. And maybe one day you'll be like, hey, you know what? I think I need a better platform, and I'll go check out. I'll go check out those people. They seem pretty good. So what are we doing here? The first thing I'd like to say is this. I have seen far too many webinars lately that are what would be considered thought leadership webinars that are bait and switches, where you show up for an hour of best practices on a certain topic. And I was in one just recently, and I was really excited because I wanted to improve my skills in a certain area. And I went there and I got about 15 minutes of best practices, and then they quickly moved me into a pitch. And it made me really angry, and I jumped off of that. Don't be the solution. People have problems and they're looking for help. And if your answer to their problem is buy my thing, you don't really know me, you haven't met me yet, maybe this might be the first interaction, and my answer for how do you do this better is buy my thing, you're gonna lose 9 out of 10 times. It's not good sales. It's the reason why we have salespeople versus marketing people in some cases. Look, helping is selling. I know that's an old adage, but I added a little to it, which is helping is selling, yes, but selling doesn't always help. And you may notice, for those of you who've been with me for a long time, Fred knows, I will often do these webinars and never even mention the name on 24 for an hour. I don't mention my product. I'm not here to pitch my product. I'm tell you how wonderful it is. I'm just here to help. And that has a value. That has a value. And you want to be the company, and you want to create an array of programs to help. So I'm going to also share a lot of what we do here in this presentation. We've got I don't know how many ongoing serialized webinar programs today. I'm hosting, I think, 7 of them myself right now. And they all serve a different purpose. This is the Webinar Best Practices series. I also host a virtual experience or virtual event best practices series. I've got a deep dives webinar series where I just do customer interviews. We have all these different programs for different needs, different use cases, different purposes. And that's the thing I want you to think about is how can you create programming for every unique need and every unique audience? And there's a lot of different formats we see this taking place with especially with thought leadership webinars. We see news style formats where you're just trying to be the expert voice in your industry. Interview shows, really popular. I like them. More and more we're seeing, and you've heard me talk about this, conversational webinars over slide-driven webinars. More and more webinars every day are throwing away the slides, and I love it. I love it, where we just have conversations. And yes, I know that's hypocritical because I'm showing you slides today, but I need to show you these pictures. We see everything from talk show formats to coffee talks and chat shows. Then there's straight best practices shows just like this one. And there's nothing wrong with slides, and there's nothing wrong with being a leading voice and showing cool things. But remember, best practices comes in all different shapes and sizes and colors. And we've seen great examples in the last year of companies delivering best practices and a little bit of fun, right? Like here's a virtual happy hour. This particular example, they had a mixologist mixing some cocktails, and they had some conversation about business. So it was a little business, a little drinking, always good. We see branding events where all we're doing is just trying to create connection. We've done a lot of this. We've done cooking shows. We did branding. We did like a mixology class, make some cocktails, and then open up to a breakout where people can just have a cocktail together and talk about business stuff. And so you can mix and match and mix networking and thought leadership and branding experiences all together. So many different ways to create different types of experiences that we would have considered top of funnel, but I just consider establishing your company as a place that people want to go to. I love this program. It's not a webinar, it's just a program. And you need to start thinking about segmenting your audiences and creating webinar programming for different use cases, different audience segments. Let's think of an example. There are recommenders and decision makers, and executive office audiences have a completely different set of needs than those people that are, tactical and will maybe have their hands on the service or product that you're selling. And we need to build different types of programming for them. We see companies today now starting to create executive only experiences where they're trying to connect with executive office audiences. And is this top of funnel, bottom of funnel? I don't know. but you're trying to engage them. Maybe you've got an analyst that gives a presentation, and then maybe you go to breakout rooms where you have conversation with a much smaller but more curated executive audience. We see a lot of discussion-based forums and roundtables and discussion-based experiences where, maybe an executive advisory board or whatever it is, where you're engaging people in a much different way than you would like this webinar. We may have thousands of people, but maybe you've got some webinars where you're only inviting 20 people or 50 people and expecting, 10 or 20 or 30 to show up, and you're having more conversation-based experiences. You need to think about what thought leadership means to the different audiences in your buying committees. Do you think I'm going to get many CMOs to come to sit through my hour-long best practices webinar? Nope, I'm not. As much as I love to think that they would get so much out of it, they're not coming. I know that. But if I create a special CMO forum just for other CMOs, and I'm only going to invite a handful of them, and maybe it's very exclusive, maybe there's an extra element to it. I just recently did a wine tasting event where there were only high-level executives there. We did a wine tasting, then we talked a little bit about some digital marketing best practices at a very, very strategic level. And that they came to, but they're not coming to this. So how can you create experiences for those different audiences? Make sense? Make sense? Let's see how you guys are doing. Okay. A lot of questions coming in about all the different options that would, look, I know it's going to come up again because I'm going to talk a little bit more deeper about it. But in terms of how you optimize around engagement, it's coming. I'm going to get a little more deeply into it. Ingrid says, exactly, responding to me talking about the tonality of webinars. Formal webinars are out. First of all, if any of you have heard my rant about digital fatigue and what BS I think it is there some meeting tool fatigue? Maybe. But the idea that there is webinar fatigue or digital fatigue is crap. There's good experiences and there's bad experiences. You're either delivering an amazing show or you're delivering a boring talking PowerPoint that nobody wants to sit through. And that is up to you, and it's on you guys to sort of figure that out and map that out. Amy just wrote, or she didn't just write it, but she says, you're glad I'm muted because I'm just chewing on ice. That's very funny. I love that. Fred asks, hey, Fred, how do we get required executive support when so many of these folks just want to sell? It is hard. There's no doubt about it. And we have to sell a different way of connecting and communicating in this new digital first world. We need to sell it everywhere. We need to sell it to our own management in marketing. We need to sell it to our sales management. Everybody needs to understand that pitching from the beginning doesn't work. I hope they would figure that out. Salespeople don't usually know that, but all you have to do is show the results. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to rethink the results here in a few. All right, let's continue on. Keep talking. Keep letting me know what you guys are thinking, what you're enjoying, any points that you want to underline or any questions that you have. I'm here for you. This is all about whatever you guys need. So we can take this conversation in any direction. All right. So we talked about thought leadership and building trust. Let's talk about now what we would have previously considered to be mid-funnel, but really, which is just positioning your solutions, positioning your company, showing value, proving that out. And there is I believe now we start to get into those areas where we can create new types of programming that a lot of people aren't necessarily doing. It starts with taking the idea of the thought leadership webinar and just making it a little more product specific. This is very similar to the bait and switch concept, except that it's advertised. And so I do see companies creating best practices or how-to webinars except the foundation of it is based on how to with my platform. It is advertised, it is promoted and announced. You know what you're walking into. So I'm interested in your product a little bit. I kind of want to know how. I'm not ready to sign up for a demo, but some best practices on how people are showing value or using it or the success they're having or how it works, you know, on a broad level, I might sign up for that. And we see that happening. The area where I think we need to do a much better job is in testimonials and customer stories. Let's talk about case studies. I know every one of you almost has on your website somewhere that library of written case studies. Oh, you know what I'm talking about, the 2 or 3 pagers. We've been doing them the same way for 50 freaking years now. You know, here's who the customer is. Here's what they do. Here was their challenge. Here's the products of ours they used. Here's the solution. Here's the amazing results. Here's a little quote. Oh my God, they love us so much. Don't you want to buy? Like, we all have them. And yes, we've got them too. Oh yeah, no, we all got them. Like, first of all, who's reading? Everybody knows you wrote that. Like, who's going to believe that anymore? Anytime anyone offers me, send me a 3-page case study. And again, I know this is hypocritical because I've got them too. But anybody who asks me, I'm a marketer. You're going to tell me I should read the case study that you wrote? I'm not believing that. But what if you take that customer who is willing to allow you to go public with their story and you just bring them on a webinar and you interview them? Or if they're willing to do a presentation, great. But if not, you just have a conversation with them about the experience that they have using your platform, your solution, your service, whatever it is, talking about the amazing results that they're getting, talking about how they use it, why they use it, when they use it, and letting your prospects hear firsthand from your customers. Is there anything more powerful than that? And I cannot tell you how valuable these resources are, not only as a live experience, but just as an on-demand experience. We've got libraries full of these. Hey, look, Fred. This is an old picture. But like, if anybody wants to know, gee, Mark, I'm kind of interested in On24. Like, who else uses you? Oh, really? Okay. If you'd like to hear Microsoft, how they use On24, or you'd like to hear how LinkedIn is using On24, if you'd like to hear SAP or HubSpot, yeah, you can listen to these people tell our story for you. And like, that is one of the easiest and best ways to get people to believe in your value proposition, because they're not hearing it from you, they're hearing it from your customers. I just recently launched, I should have put a picture in here, one of our newest webinar series called the On24 Digital Deep Dives series, where I take one webinar or one virtual event or content experience from one of our customers, and all I do is I just do a complete breakdown. The customer joins me on the webinar, and we don't look at their whole program. We don't talk about marketing at a high level. I take that one experience and we break it down, literally piece by. What are you doing over here? What's this? And I can let the audience drive too. Like, if anybody has questions, what is that? What did they do that for? And we let them share that experience, and we're just doing it in conversation. It is so darn good. And so far the audiences absolutely love it. Think about it. Think about different ways you can create engaging programming like that. Another thing you can do is create programming for more segmented audiences. And one of the things that in the past 3 or 4 or 5 years we've been doing a lot more of is, yeah, I've got this webinar best practices series, high-level thought leadership webinar, but I also create a lot of thought leadership webinars or solution-based webinars for specific segments that I am selling to. So pharma is a segment that we sell pretty deeply into. So I create webinar programming for pharma marketers only. Some of it's high-level thought leadership, way high level. Some of it is solutions-based. Here's how some people are using On24 in the pharma world to do blah, 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 blah. And then there's even some demos as well. So you can do that by persona. You can do it by buying group. There's so many different ways in which you can reuse the platform. Stop thinking of it as a webinar and that all the trappings that you think that is, because it's not. It's whatever you want it to be. And you can have a lot of creativity in the programming that you create. I'm getting fired up. Here we go. I knew it would happen sooner or later. Is it the tea? I don't know. Clearly, Snooze Fest was the wrong name for this tea. So get creative. I mean, yes, it means doing more, but that's what great marketing does. You don't just rest on your on your laurels and just do your one webinar a month. No, you're like, okay, you know what? I'll do a big high level broadcast a net out webinar, but then I'm going to do one for this industry, one for that industry, one for that industry. Maybe some things are common in those, but we're just changing the examples, the customer examples. There's so much more that we can do. And we see companies creating content hubs with on-demand webinars full of use case-based presentations. Sometimes those webinars may only be 15 minutes or 30 minutes. They don't have to be all 1 hour webinars, but creating this content across that product journey can be really effective. This is Charles Schwab. Oh, they're so good. Love their marketing department, where they, you go to one of their content hubs, you click on a specific area of interest that may launch a targeted landing page for a specific audience, which then you could click into on-demand webinars. So effective for different audiences. Get creative, find ways to do that, okay? All right, now, the area that I think we all need to do the most on, and I'll explain why, is demonstration. How do we close business in a digital first world? If I think there was one area that was most affected by the pandemic, it wasn't our ability to generate leads. We've always had digital channels, right? And we know that they work. And in fact, as a lot of companies were forced to go away from physical events like seminars in a hotel ballroom or doing big user conferences to the digital space, where suddenly more people were showing up and like lead counts are higher than ever. For better or for worse, lead counts in the past 3 years are higher than ever because we have now eliminated all the barriers of access. You don't have to get on a plane. You don't have to take off time from work. It doesn't cost anything. You can join any virtual conference from anywhere, anytime. You can be there with a click of a button, right? You can come to any webinar. You can go to any content page. So that wasn't the problem. The problem was that our salespeople were relegated to the phones. And suddenly nobody was out there visiting, making sales calls. We weren't pressing the flesh. We didn't have physical events to connect people as much. And we had to rethink how we connected. And closing business became harder. And I think the area that we as marketers haven't thought enough about in this digital first world is not how we generate names, not how we generate leads, not how we get people engaged, but how do we get them to buy? And I think that the evolution of top of funnel, see, I almost got caught. See what I did? The evolution of lead generation has been growing gangbusters. It's going great in a digital world. The evolution of how we demonstrate and close business has lagged. And so we need to begin to create experiences that will help us do this. And I think part of the problem is that a lot of us thought, well, in a digital world, the way in which I'm going to demonstrate my products and services are with awesome video content. And companies have been investing a lot of money in making really great videos or crappy videos, one or the other, showing their products and services and how awesome they are. And it's not to say that a really polished video of what your products and services do isn't great, but what can you do with that video? That's all you can do. You can watch it. Can you ask a video a question? No. Can you download a piece of content from that video? No, you cannot. Does the video ask you a question on a poll or a survey? No, it doesn't. You can't interact with a video. It's passive. It's passive. And, we need to move to active formats like webinars and virtual events and virtual content experiences where people can engage more directly with them if we're going to be better at closing business. And that's why you see more companies creating product demonstration webinars, as an example, where we're not just, we're not just telling, we're showing, and think of all the things that we can do in a thought leadership webinar that we take for granted. Right? I'm demonstrating my medical device to you, And not only that, but here are 10 pieces of content about that medical device that you can binge on right now. Here's a link to our product page on our website that goes a little more deeply into what you can do. Here's a link to a pricing page for those medical devices. Or here's a link to another page for a different type of medical device if you're more interested in that one instead of this one. By the way, we're going to give you this demo. You can ask me questions, and in real time, I will, move the webinar in that direction. Or if you ask them to me on demand, then we'll get somebody to call you and answer that question for you. Right? It's a different way to demonstrate value by engaging people. And this is where I think those really savvy marketers, the companies that are winning in this new digital first world, this post-pandemic, we're never going to be post-pandemic, are creating events and webinar demonstration experiences where they are literally taking audiences into their products, showing them, but interacting with them and engaging with them and giving them things to do in the experience, right? So they're not just saying, hey, look, this drug does this is how we make it. But here's all kinds of content that supports that as well. Or do you want to have a conversation? You can do that as well. And we see companies creating literally hubs of demonstration content. Like here's Oracle, and like here's all these different demos and on-demand demo webinars, and they're broken up by product type or use case or buyer type. There's so many different ways. So this idea of like, and it's not one webinar, it's creating streams of demonstration experiences. They could be live, or maybe they go right to on demand. Maybe you're just building them and posting them on demand where you can let your audience binge on all of the product-centric content they need to help them make a decision. And maybe they don't even want to talk to a salesperson before they make that decision. They don't want to get on the phone with that salesperson quite yet. They need to learn a little bit more, and they don't want to hear it from them. So but if you give them the opportunity to binge on a content hub full of on-demand demo experiences where they can get in there and see your products at work, and where you're linking them to the necessary content they need and they're jumping from experience to experience, that is how you close business. There's other things you can do as well. What about ABM? Creating webinars for specific, unique clients? Well, wait a minute, huh? We don't do that, Mark. We create webinars for thousands of people, not for 10. Not us. I can't tell you how many times I've hosted a webinar for one company. And so here's the Johnson & Johnson. Yeah, anybody in the marketing department, Johnson & Johnson, want to come to a best practices webinar on engaging audiences in the digital world? And we send it out to everybody in their database. Or maybe you're in an existing client and you just want to expand into new buying centers. So you create unique, specific webinars to invite people to say, hey, we're a solution of record, Siemens, and we'd love to talk to some of these other departments, and we'll create some, here's what we do with your company, and here's some great things you can, like the options and the possibilities are endless. And I think that where ABM is great is in its ability to target. Where ABM always falls short is in its inability to engage. And when you combine the idea of ABM and engaging digital experiences like webinars or virtual conferences or whatever, or a forum or a virtual roundtable, then something magical can really happen. I've been a part of some amazing roundtable discussion events that we have done with just targeted accounts, where all we do is we do a little presentation and then we have a lot of conversation with them, and maybe they're on camera. So there's a lot you can do. And then we'll build targeted landing pages for that account, and we'll send it to everybody in our database for that account. Hey, LinkedIn, we do business with you. And if you're not, if you're a department that doesn't do business with us, here's some cool assets. Here's some on-demand webinars. Maybe here's a link to this page or that page, or here's a video, whatever it is. I think this is how we take ABM to the next level, to bring engagement into our more targeted experiences. Make sense? How we doing? All right. The last thing I want to share with you, and then we'll do some more questions. So get your questions in, people. Get your questions in, because it doesn't end there. Let's say we do a really good job and people have they've joined us for a lot of our experiences. Maybe they came and they joined a product demo. They enjoyed that, not ready to buy yet, but they came to a couple of your thought leadership webinars. Maybe they came to one of your case study webinars. And at some point, they felt like they were good to go. They finally took that meeting with that salesperson. They signed that contract. We're not done. You should be creating lots of webinar program for your customers, because what are we trying to do? Once we get somebody as a customer, engagement doesn't stop. We need to reduce churn. We need to try to cross-sell and upsell those people. We want to build community and stickiness, which is also goes to churn. So the companies that are really successful are the ones that don't stop those streams of programming. You want to create lots of programming. And this is, by the way, where for those of you that are maybe watching this webinar, maybe you're on a demand gen team or something like that, your customer marketing people need to be involved. They should see this part. Maybe just let them know, hey, you know what? You got to watch this one section, because, and we're doing this a lot. I'm going to show you a bunch of examples of how we do it, because I'm really proud of the way in which we connect to our webinar community. We have so many different ways and webinar programs that we use to stay connected to our customers. Anytime we've got product updates, product announcements, we do regular just product updates in general, letting people know about new features and new things that are happening. Sometimes we demonstrate and show. Sometimes we do interviews. We do all kinds of different things, but everything you would need to stay up to date on what we're doing, we have a webinar program for that. And different product managers will come in and out, and there's links to content. We've got a new data sheet that'll help you. We've got a new link to these 3 pages that'll give you some solutions guides or some best practices guides now that you're using the product. Links to other events. Hey, we've got a big customer event coming up we wanted to let you know about, or come to the customer conference, whatever it is. We do that. We create best practices experience just for customers. What? Why would you do that? Why don't you give it to everybody? You know what? Our customer is different. It's a different conversation. Like the context is, well, you're using the platform. Let us show you some best practices for how you can do this a little bit better. And those can be really, really effective. We do customer workshops, and we'll do this for prospects and customers, but we'll also often do just plain old straight up customer workshops where we invite customers who maybe have unique use cases or use our platforms in unique ways, and we will deliver best practices for them so that they can use the platform to get the best possible result. And they appreciate that kind of thing. It matters. It really, really matters. We see companies doing partner enablement events and symposiums and training events using webinars, so many different ways. So my lesson here is, don't think of your webinar programming as stopping at the point of purchase. And I know it's kind of an obvious one, but it is amazing every time I talk to marketing departments, when I ask them to show me their webinar portfolio, I'm like, well, show me all the webinar programming you're doing. And it's like tons of thought leadership, little bit of the other stuff, and almost no customer-centric programming. Maybe 1 or 2 things occasionally. And I think it's a mistake. There is no better. I mean, like, which one of you are at everyone is at a company where if you reduce churn by even 1%, it has a profound effect on the bottom line. If you don't know what that statement means, ask your CEO about it, because your CEO will tell you that 1% reduction in churn, a 1 or 0.5% increase in cross-selling or upselling on a certain product line or whatever makes a huge difference to a bottom line. And this is a great way to do that. Okay, the last thing I want to share with you, and then we'll get to your questions, is coming back to the beginning. So we talked about all these different kinds of webinars that you can create to meet those needs. And again, those needs are coming in any direction at any time. Even though I presented it in a linear fashion, it will not be a linear experience. They're not going on a linear journey. But if you did it right, you made sure that no matter what the experience was that you were delivering, the goal was the engagement. and you really loaded it up. So before I jump and make my larger point, I wanted to ask one more poll. Let me ask you guys this. How effectively do you think you are at qualifying your webinar leads? Be honest. This is a completely anonymous poll. No one can see your answers, but we just simply, are you just running the webinars to generate the leads? Probably most of us. If they show up to the webinar, you just assume that they're qualified, or are you qualifying the lead based on the activity in the webinar? Pretty simple. And I know maybe it's a little bit of everything, but click on the answer that you think most resonates with where you're at right now. How effective do you feel you are at qualifying those webinar leads and figuring out which are the Glengarry leads, who are the good leads? I don't know how many people get that reference anymore. I'm aging myself, people. Glengarry Glen Ross, rent it. It's an amazing movie. It's a play too. Anyway, so click right there on the poll. I'll come back to you in a moment. The reason I bring this up is because I say this as often as I possibly can. It's my mantra. It's maybe my most used slide ever. But I tell everybody, put the entire buyer's journey in every experience. Make sure that whatever kind of experience you're building, whether it was that demo webinar, a customer, interview webinar, a thought leadership webinar, you have something for everybody. You don't know where that next interest is going to lie. If somebody is ready to have a conversation, great. Maybe you've got some appointment setting, available right there in the webinar, right? You can do that right now, by the way. You want an appointment with one of us? Yeah, there's a button you can press right there. But maybe they're not ready, and maybe they just want some more thought leadership content. So providing them with a wealth of different options so that they can go to a landing page based on different products. Maybe you're inviting them to an event. Maybe you've got some best practices infographics. Sure. Or you've got a big conference coming up and you want to invite people to that. Or maybe you're just giving them a link to your YouTube page so they can binge on some videos. A broad assortment of options from just help me to learn more to show me more about your products, all the way to I would like an appointment. If you make it available in every experience, you don't know where and when people are going to raise their hand, but they can't raise their hand if you don't give them the opportunity. There's a big difference between interest and intent. You will not discover intent if you don't architect your webinars in this way. All right, so I asked you guys how effective you are qualifying your leads. Almost 37% of you say, we're just kind of generating leads. 43% of you said, well, if they show up, we assume they're qualified. And only 20% of you said we're qualifying based on activity in the webinar. And that's okay. I think that's where a lot of us are today. It is how you get to know your audience. And there's a reason why my housekeeping is so annoyingly long every time I deliver a webinar, because I want there to be something for all of you. Not every one of you is going to want to say, hey, Mark, can I talk to one of your solutions people? I'd like to actually learn a little bit more about it. Not every one of you is going to say, Mark, that demo, I want to see a little bit more about the platform you guys have here. Some of you will, but some of you may. I hope some of you do. But some of you also may be like, you know what, I want to come to that conference, that user conference. That sounds like a lot of fun. And by the way, you don't have to be an On24 customer to come to the conference. It's open to everybody. It's amazing. But or maybe you just want some best practices content and that's it. There needs to be something for everybody. And that's how we architect every experience. We literally sit down and think it through with every experience. And even in these crazy experiences like the virtual happy hours and some of the crazy examples I showed you, you'll notice how they are just chock full of things to do, right? Where people are asking questions and filling out surveys and there's polls popping up, blah, blah, blah. Every experience needs to have engagement at the center of it. And if you do that, that is how you'll get to know your prospects and your customers. That is how you'll figure out where their interests lie, what what path you might want to put them on, by looking at what content they're downloading, by looking at how many questions they ask, what questions they ask. We're going to learn more about them. The things they click on, the CTAs they're clicking on, all of this helps us understand. We need to get a profile of every single prospect. And if you then begin to aggregate that that prospect profile across multiple webinars and digital experiences, we're going to get a pretty good idea where people are at. We're going to understand where the best leads are. We're going to figure out, who is really showing buying intent. We're going to figure out where their primary interests are and what the right next step is, and how to recommend the next content in their journey. It's how we get more scientific. Marketing is an art and a science. And if you build this, the data, like all that engagement turns into data, and we can run it into our marketing automation to figure out what the best next logical step would be for them. And it also, we take all that data, we put it in our CRMs, we give it to our sales teams to enable them to continue a conversation and not start it. We can even create triggers based on the engagement so that salespeople may know, hey, somebody clicked on this poll or clicked on this CTA. This would be a good conversation to start with. Get on the phone, make that call. This is maybe where you should start. It is a journey, okay? It really is. It is a journey, and we need to architect experiences across that journey. Okay, so we do have a few minutes left for Q&A, so I'll try to run through. We'll do a boiler room. Yeah, it was a good reference, but that was no, Glengarry Glen Ross is the right answer, not boiler room. I'd love your suggestion on how to keep content engaging. So Kelly asked a question. They're in the travel industry, and they host multiple webinars all a week and on different topics. Love to hear suggestions on how to keep the content engaging and fresh with presenters every time, but with the same audience. Well, I mean, that's a big question, hard to answer in one or two sentences. But I will say that, always finding different angles to talk about. Like I've been doing this webinar series for close to 10 years. It may be the longest running webinar series. Guinness doesn't measure. I wish they did. I have to find a different way to talk about webinars every single month. It's not easy, but you know what? There are so many angles. And also you'll have greatest hits that you can fall back on. Like every December, I do my webinars that rock, where I just show the best of the best, and it's fresh and different every time. Next month, we're doing our 10 common webinar mistakes, and I'll try to come up with some new ones every time. So find ways to freshen up the content, even if you're talking about things that you've already talked about. And remember, conversations are better than presentations. Let's see. Great question, though. All right. Let's see. Gretchen says, we do all the time, letting customers tell their own story on webinars. Have a hard time getting a good segue into the sales pitch from there. Don't. That's my Gretchen, that's my advice. When you're delivering a customer testimonial webinar, don't segue into a pitch. Let it sit there. Just let it ruminate, let it absorb. That's the good marketing doesn't always move you into a pitch. It is really important. Executives think webinars should only be gated and okay, Shaila asked the question. It's a good one. How do you respond to executives that think webinars should only be gated versus openly sharing because you're protecting content from competitors? Well, first of all, I think gating webinars is fine. We gate most of our webinars, but you can also, if you've got competitors, you can just eliminate their URLs or their addresses from your lists. I think it's actually a simpler problem to address. To say, yeah, we'll do that. Anybody who's got you could just not take any Gmail addresses unless you're a B2C company, and then don't take any competitive email addresses. Let's see. Okay, great question. Christina says, how does some of what you're saying apply to topics or industries that may not be as exciting, such as compliance? Well, here's my best advice for that. And it's the question that I get a lot of, which is, we're in a boring industry. We only can give boring webinars. For one thing, maybe move to conversational formats, because that is a great way to break free of boring. Just take away the PowerPoint, take away the presentation. A lot of the presenters are naturally boring. Put them in groups, put them in conversations, and I think that they will get a lot better at it. How long does it take you to create a 1-hour webinar? If you come to On24 Experience next week, I am delivering a presentation with my coworker, Rhythm, Anatomy of a Webinar, and we're going to show you exactly how we build one of our webinars. So sign up, click the button. That'll be great. All right, we're getting a little past time. I'm going to stay. If you guys want to leave this open, I'm going to continue to type answers for some of you. You guys have been awesome. I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Don't forget, sign up for next month's webinar, 10 common webinar mistakes. You don't want to miss that one. But most importantly, click on the On24 Experience button somewhere right around here. It's going to be great. Me and Marley Matlin talking all about accessibility and some fun stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit of some of the things that she's done too. And it's just a great experience. So with that, I want to thank all of you for attending today. We'll see you next month for the On24 Webinar Best Practices series.